When Edward I of England rode north in armour, the earth seemed to shake with him. He was tall for his age, unusually tall, and his long legs earned him the nickname Longshanks. But it was not height alone that made him loom over his century. Born in 1239, the eldest son of Henry III, Edward grew up in a court filled with piety, art, and political tension. His father dreamed of sacred kingship. His son grew into a man who believed kingship was power, law, and iron discipline. If Henry III's reign had been a long struggle between crown and barons, Edward's would be an age of command. When he became king in 1272, he did not inherit civil war. He inherited the aftermath of one, and the memory of how close the monarchy had come to being mastered by its own subjects. Edward never forgot that lesson. He had already proven himself in war before he wore the crown. As a young prince, he fought during the Second Barons' War against Simon de Montfort, the same conflict that had humiliated his father. Edward was captured at Lewes in 1264, but he escaped the next year and led the royalist army that crushed Montfort at Evesham in 1265. The victory was brutal. Montfort's body was hacked apart, and rebellion died with him. Edward had seen what disorder looked like, and he would spend his reign trying to prevent it, even at terrible cost. When Henry III died in 1272, Edward was not in England. He was on crusade in the Eastern Mediterranean, part of what later chroniclers called the Ninth Crusade. His absence did not trigger chaos. The government continued smoothly in his name, a sign of how much royal administration had matured. Edward did not rush home. He returned only in 1274, after securing his position abroad. That calm transition showed something new. The English crown was becoming an institution, not merely the presence of a king. From the start, Edward ruled with purpose. He was not merely a warrior, he was a reformer of law. One of his earliest achievements was the Great Inquiry, as the 100 Rolls from 1274 till 1275, an investigation into abuses of royal rights and local governance. It was followed by a series of important legal statutes. The Statute of Westminster, 1275, addressed legal procedures and corruption. Later statutes clarified property rights, inheritance, and the relationship between local and royal courts. Edward believed in order, a realm where authority flowed downward from the crown, and where law was clear, enforceable, and written. But Edward's vision of order had a darker side. In 1290, he issued the Edict of Expulsion, ordering the expulsion of Jews from England. Jewish communities had long been under direct royal protection and financial exploitation, but anti-Jewish prejudice and financial tensions ran deep. The expulsion ended centuries of Jewish presence in medieval England. It was a decision shaped by politics, debt, and popular hostility, and it left a moral shadow on his reign. Edward's greatest impact, however, was forged in war. To his west lay Wales, divided among native princes, but increasingly dominated by Llywelyn ap Griffith, who styled himself Prince of Wales. Tensions between Llywelyn and the English crown had simmered under Henry III, but Edward would not tolerate a semi-independent ruler on his frontier. In 1277, he launched a campaign that forced Llywelyn to submit. But peace did not last. In 1282, Welsh revolt flared again. This time, Edward came not merely to discipline, but to conquer. The war was hard and relentless. Llywelyn was killed in battle near Builthwells in December 1282. His brother Dafydd continued resistance, but was captured and executed in 1283. Edward's victory was total. The Statute of Rhuddlan 1284 incorporated Wales into the English crown's domain, introducing English law in many areas while allowing some Welsh customs to survive. To cement control, Edward built a chain of mighty castles: Carnarvon, Conwy, Harlech, and Beaumaris, masterpieces of medieval military architecture. These stone fortresses were not just defences, they were symbols of domination, rising over Welsh landscapes like permanent declarations of conquest. It was after this victory that Edward gave the title Prince of Wales to his son, the future Edward II, a title English heirs to the throne still hold. Wales had not merely been defeated, it had been bound to the English monarchy. To the north lay a different challenge, Scotland. When the Scottish King Alexander III died in 1286, followed by his granddaughter Margaret, the Maid of Norway, in 1290, Scotland faced a succession crisis. Competing claimants turned to Edward to arbitrate. Edward agreed, but only after insisting that he be recognised as overlord of Scotland. Under pressure, the Scottish nobles consented. In 1292, Edward chose John Balliol as king, but Balliol soon resisted English interference. Edward responded with fury. In 1296, he invaded Scotland, defeated Balliol, and removed him from the throne. He seized the Stone of Scone, the ancient symbol of Scottish kingship, and took it to Westminster. To Edward, Scotland had been subdued. He was wrong. Resistance gathered around figures like William Wallace. In 1297, Wallace and Andrew Murray defeated an English army at the Battle of Stirling Bridge. Edward marched north the next year and won a hard-fought victory at Falkirk 1298, where English longbowmen shattered Scottish schiltron formations. Wallace's resistance eventually collapsed. He was captured and executed in 1305, but another leader rose, Robert the Bruce. In 1306, Bruce killed his rival John Comyn and had himself crowned King of Scots. Edward, now aging but still relentless, prepared yet another campaign. He never saw its end. He died in 1307, near the Scottish border, still intent on war. Edward's wars required money, and money required negotiation. Throughout his reign, he summoned parliaments to approve taxation. The famous Model Parliament of 1295 included not only nobles and clergy, but also representatives from counties and boroughs, knights and burgesses. Edward did not summon them out of democratic idealism. He needed broad consent to fund his wars, yet the precedent mattered. The structure of Parliament, Lords, clergy, Commons, took clearer shape under him. His reign also saw conflict with the Church. Disputes over taxation of clergy led to confrontations with Archbishop Robert Winchelsea. Edward was firm. No institution in his realm stood entirely beyond royal authority. In personality, Edward combined sternness with intensity. He was capable of deep loyalty and fierce anger. He loved his first wife, Eleanor of Castile, deeply. When she died in 1290, he ordered the construction of memorial crosses at each place her funeral procession rested. The Eleanor crosses, monuments of grief and devotion. Later, he married Margaret of France, strengthening diplomatic ties. Edward was not merely a conqueror, but a system builder. He strengthened royal justice, clarified feudal obligations, and expanded administrative record-keeping. His government functioned with growing bureaucratic sophistication. Sheriffs, judges, clerks, all operated within a more structured framework than in earlier reigns. Yet his legacy is double-edged. To many English chroniclers, he was a great king, lawgiver, conqueror, guardian of order. To Welsh and Scottish memory, he was a hammer of nations, a destroyer of independence. His castles still stand. So do the stories of resistance he provoked. By the time of his death, England was more centralized, more legally defined, and more assertive than when he took the throne. But it was also entangled in long wars and heavy taxation. His son, Edward II, would inherit not only a powerful monarchy, but also unresolved conflicts and resentments. Edward I's life was a study in will. He believed kingship meant responsibility for order, and that disorder justified force. He rode across Britain, imposing his vision in stone, law, and blood. Where Henry III had ruled through piety and patience, Edward ruled through command. He died as he had lived, on campaign, armoured in purpose, facing north toward an unconquered land. His body was buried in Westminster Abbey, beneath a simple inscription, Edwardus Primus Scotorum Malleus, Edward I, Hammer of the Scots. It was not merely a boast. It was the epitaph of a king who reshaped Britain through law and war, leaving behind a realm stronger, harsher, and forever changed.